What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Line Movement NBA show. I'm your host, Dieter Kurtenbach, joined by my friend and your betting Sherpa, Matt LaMarca, over in Long Island. Matt, we haven't talked in a couple of days. Some stuff has gone down, buddy. This NBA action is hot on the block. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well as can be expected at 10:30 in the morning for me.
I'm in Seattle. What the hell do you think I'm doing up at 7:30 in the morning? Come on, man.
See,
I
but
had to I had to escape California, had to get to the north, had to get some fresh air, and I'm waking up. I'm very excited to talk to you, and you're bringing me no energy off of the bat, man. No energy at all. Come on, you've been up for hours.
I think if we did the whole, time we're recording versus usual wake up time, I
How
have you beat by a mile. So
Matt
no,
Matt
but
LaMarca.
in all seriousness, I am excited to talk some hoops. We've had some good stuff happen over the past couple days.
Yeah.
Some interesting things, and I think it's gonna be a fun show.
No one wants to hear from us. Let's just get into the actual NBA action. Let's just even look forward. We will look backwards while we look forwards, and we're going to look to the first game that we have on the slate today. We'll get into Sunday's games in a minute, but get on to the slate today. Bucks and Magic, and I think that we both expected what we saw the last time these two teams played. The Bucks were just better. The Magic didn't have the juice. Vucevic can't do it all. I can't imagine that game 3 doesn't go the same way that game 2 does. Do I still have concerns about the Bucks? Absolutely. Do I think the Orlando Magic are going to exploit them again? No. Line right now on blitzbet.eu minus 12.5 for the Milwaukee Bucks. How do you feel about that number? Because really, we're only having a conversation about that number here.
Yeah, I'm fine with that number. I think that it's obviously a little bit intimidating, a 12 and a half point spread, but the Bucks are just so much better than the Magic. I mean, the scary thing is that the Bucks really didn't even play that well last
Right.
game, and they
Right.
still covered. Their defense is going to suffocate the Magic. If you look at their shot profile in this series, it's terrible. It's all mid range shots. They're basically living and dying with the long mid range. Milwaukee offensively has been way below average for them at the rim and from the 3-point line, which is how they make their living for the most part. So
Mhm.
if they can start, seeing some progression in those departments while continuing to play defense, I don't think that Milwaukee's going to be able to hang a fight, especially with Aaron Gordon out once again here in game 3.
Right. Do you feel any sort of sway towards a plus 615 for Orlando? Like, hey, maybe if they knock down those mid-range shots, there's a lot of value in that number, and we have seen them win before. And now 2-1 series lead for Orlando. That's a bit of a stretch. Let's be real. But listen, if you liked what you saw in game 1, we haven't seen anything from the Bucks that makes us think, oh, juggernaut back in play. Here we go. They're good. They're better, but that's the reason you're getting plus 615. Any thoughts on the Orlando money line here?
I think if I was going to talk myself into that, and I'm not, by the way, I'm not expecting the Magic to win another game. But
Right.
if I wanted to look in that direction, I would probably just bet Milwaukee to win the series 4-2.
Hmm.
That way, they only have to win one of the next 3 games as opposed to
Right.
this particular game.
Keep it
So,
loose. Give yourself some outs.
yeah, I think obviously you're not going to get as good of a payout, but you also don't need the Magic to win a game as 13-point underdogs.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that. I'll give you that straight up. Now, I do want to get into that concept that you just brought up about how Orlando has to live in the mid range. Let's be real here. That's how most teams have to live in the NBA playoffs. That's what good defensive teams do to everybody. They force you into the least efficient shot on the floor, which is the mid range. And that's why we see wings really dominate come playoff time. And that's something I harp on time and time again. The guys who can knock down those mid range shots are the ones who win you games, especially in the fourth quarter. But with that in mind, how do you feel about the total? I'm seeing 222.5 on BlitzBet. I don't know. I'm feeling like this might be an over game. Where's your gut?
Yeah, it really depends on Orlando, in my opinion. Like, I think we can pretty comfortably pencil the Bucks in for, around 115. That's
Hmm.
kind of where they live.
Hmm.
It's what are we going to get from the Magic? Are they going to give us another game where they don't break 100, or can they make some shots? So I would probably lean towards the under.
Okay.
Orlando is not a team that has been good offensively for the whole season. They're the second worst playoff team in terms of expected effective field goal percentage. Try to say that 10 times fast.
You can if you want. Tell me what that is. I mean, I can deduce it straight up based off of the title, but like,
Yes.
talk to me about that stat a little bit because I haven't heard expected. What was it again?
Expected effective field goal percentage.
Double
So,
E, double EF.
yeah, I like this stat a lot.
Yeah.
Basically, it's looking at your shot profile, which is, what percentage of your shots are coming at the rim, what are coming from corner three,
Right.
non-corner three, mid-range, long mid-range. It takes your whole shot profile into effect, and then it gives you average shooting numbers from each of those spots.
Hmm.
So if you're, and it normalizes it for player as well. If you have this
Oh, yeah.
player shooting this shot,
Mhm.
what should his field goal percentage be based on what we've seen from him? So it's a really good way to sort of take some of the shooting number variance out of it and just look
Right.
at what kind of shots are you getting on a nightly basis. So
Right.
the Bucks right now have been the second worst playoff team. The only team that's been worse, you have a guess?
That would be the Brooklyn Nets.
Nope.
Oh, okay.
They played yesterday and they have been brutal offensively.
Oh, the Nuggets then.
No.
What? They've been
Philadelphia
brutal. Oh, Philadelphia.
Philadelphia
Oh,
76ers.
sorry. I forgot. I forgot that they were a playoff team for a
Oh,
second. 'Cause when I watched them, I did not get playoff team vibes. That's a great point. By the way, I got to talk to you about Denver in just a little bit because what? I mean, it makes sense, but what? Okay, that jives with what we saw in game two in particular, and honestly, it jives with what we saw in game one, where Orlando was just knocking down shot after shot, and you're like, how long can they keep this up? Apparently for 48 minutes, but not any further than that. So, listen, we're both in on the Bucks overall. There might be some value if you get really cute on Orlando, but the likelihood is this is going to be a gentleman's sweep, and even
right.
that
And
12 and a half, yeah, is probably not good enough to get in on Orlando's action.
going back to that expected
Yeah,
effective field goal percentage,
there it is.
double EFG, I'm going to call it from now on.
It's beautiful. Hit me with the double
The
E.
the Bucks right now are 10th in that category. Or I'm sorry, they're
Okay.
10th in actual effective
Right.
field goal percentage,
That makes sense.
second in expected.
Right.
So they're a team that we're expecting better things from offensively, while Orlando is kind of a team that we're expecting worse things. We already know about the Bucks' defensive capabilities. Like,
Yeah.
it would not shock me if Milwaukee won by 30 today. I don't think
Yeah.
that should surprise anybody.
Right. If they have a really nice game, if Chris Middleton plays well, if it just kind of clicks for them offensively, that's kind of why I'm in on the over total. It has really very little to do with the Orlando Magic. It just has everything to do with the Milwaukee Bucks just deciding if we go up 2-1, this is kind of done. Like, let's just absolutely demoralize this Orlando team. Let's show everybody that, we're championship contenders again. Let's get the narrative on our side here and just absolutely rolling these dudes and dropping a buck 35 on their head, in which case there's going to be plenty of garbage time. And then, who knows? Maybe Orlando can get over 100 then. A game that I have a hard time seeing. I mean, we'll just start with the total on BlitzBet. You 213.5 for the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers, who have we've been enjoying some slugfests here. And listen, no one expects the Pacers to explode offensively. So I guess my question in regards to this game, and the Heat are 5.5-point favorites. You can get them plus 175 on the money line. Or I'm sorry, minus 217 on the money line. You can get the Pacers plus 175 on the money line. My question is, does Miami have another offensive gear? Because I know that Indiana is not going to be able to put up points on this Miami defense. They've been suffocated. They don't have the dudes. TJ Warren doesn't look right. Maybe Victor Oladipo breaks through, but I'm just having a hard time seeing that. It's just about Miami getting to another level as it pertains to the total, and honestly, as it pertains to their chances moving forward in these NBA playoffs. Do you see anything there? What does the double E stat tell us? What are we thinking about the Miami Heat overall here?
Yeah, double E, not a fan of the Miami Heat. They
Makes
are
sense.
second in effective field goal percentage. So they have been Scoring
Uh,
well. The numbers in those games are a little bit less inflated because these games have been just a rock fight in terms of pace.
right, right.
Right. So, Miami scoring 110 points versus the Pacers is the equivalent of scoring like 135 points against the Rockets.
Right.
So, Miami is second in effective field goal percentage, sixth in expected. So,
Okay.
not a huge difference,
That's some
but
regression
it does
expected.
suggest that they have been running hot. But you know what? Miami has been running hot basically the entire season.
True.
So,
True.
that's kind of what you get. I, we've brought up Duncan Robinson like a million times.
He's really good.
He's becoming like my favorite NBA player. I don't know why, but like he just makes that much of a difference when he's on the court. If
Uh-huh.
you look at how much better the Heat have been with Duncan Robinson on the court, it is mind blowing. I mean, like he is in the same tier in terms of net rating differential as the best players in the league. Like the only players that have been better and have played a comparable minute workload, I'm pretty sure it's Chris Paul and maybe Giannis. That's
Those are
something I never
those are
thought I would say.
Chris Paul, Giannis, and of course Duncan Robinson of the
Yes,
Miami
yes.
Heat, the guy who's
The big
playing
three, as
D3
they're known.
basketball. Yeah, that's wild. How do you? My gut tells me that while yes, you point out, the stats would say regression is probably coming, not significant, but some. My gut tells me that Miami is a significantly better team than the Pacers, and that they just end this thing with a vengeance this evening, and that they just absolutely go to town on them and drop. Listen, the 5.5 is going to look kind of foolish when it's all said and done. I think I'm in on on Miami on this one. How do you feel?
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers. I mean, game one of this series, I'm pretty sure was like 3.5 points, maybe.
Right, right. It just keeps
So we're
ticking up,
getting
ticking up.
we're getting essentially two additional points now.
Yeah, of
Now maybe you can say that first line was bad. I mean, certainly the way that these teams have performed would make you say that, but
course.
it's not like the Pacers got blown out in game one. They were
No,
right in it, and Victor Oladipo didn't even play in basically the whole second half.
right.
The Pacers, in all likelihood, are not going to win this series. I mean, when teams get up 2-0, I want to say they're like 90+% to win, maybe even like 94%, something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't expect a miraculous comeback here from the Pacers. But can they cover today? I think it's possible. I felt the same way about Philadelphia yesterday,
Right.
and it really I feel like they were the correct side, even though they didn't cover. You
Right.
know, and
I'm with
and
you.
I know that if you're not a hardcore bettor, that might not make a ton of sense to you. But when you bet a team as a 5 point underdog and they lose by 8, shooting like 29% from the field,
Exactly. Yeah.
you're like, okay, I was on the right side. They just couldn't hit water if
Yeah.
they fell out of a boat. Oh,
And
you
listen,
know,
it's we knew that they couldn't shoot all that well, and we knew that they couldn't create shots down the street. We knew all of that stuff, but yeah, they shouldn't have even been in that game. Any other team shoots 27, 28, 29%. And by the way, for as long as they shot that, they came out cold and stayed cold the entire damn game. I guess we've just switched to Philadelphia here, but like when that happens, you just have to listen. There's a lot of luck involved in this. As much as we want to pretend as if we're, the all-seeing oracles here, sometimes stuff doesn't work out. It's about putting yourself in the best position probability-wise. It's about making sure that you feel really comfortable. Nothing is certain. Dude, I mean, this is a sport. I mean, we saw in two different games, and we'll get to these guys in a second. The two best players on two different teams, two teams that were in their series, and Luka Doncic and Dame Lillard get injured. Stuff happens. It's the real world. It's a live action sport. Anything can go down. And sometimes guys just listen, the bubble lifestyle might get to them one night. You don't know. It is wild and it's crazy. We're just trying to throw out the best probabilities here, the things that we can see happening based on all the data we have. Matt certainly bringing a little bit more data than I am. I like to think I got some data, but
oh,
there's also the narrative arcs, and there's also the emotional stuff, and remembering kind of in the back of your head how they performed in a similar situation, if there's any sort of situation similar to playing in a bubble in Orlando for the NBA
well,
playoffs. Like,
it's
yeah,
funny that you bring that up because I have here a little trend.
Okay.
I did mention this again for the 76ers yesterday. It didn't come
Right.
through, but that's the thing with trends. They're not always going to win, but it's
Yep.
it's supposed to be like a baseline. So
Of course.
basically, if you take the 7 and 8 seeds and you throw them out,
Right.
if you look at teams that have fallen down in a series 0-2 in the playoffs,
Okay.
they cover game 3 at roughly a 55% clip. So it's
You can
not an
make some money on
overwhelming.
55%.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's not an overwhelming sample size here, but it's 7% ROI. 47, 39, and 3 is the record. And again, that is now including a Philadelphia loss in this spot yesterday. But
Mhm. Mhm.
typically, as long as you're avoiding the real dregs of basketball, the teams that are like the 7 and 8 seeds who are playing the best teams in the league. If you throw them out
Right.
when a team falls down 0-2, I think you should expect to see their best performance. Now, is the Pacers' best performance good enough to cover versus the Heat? That's a different question entirely.
Right.
I'm not ready to say that it isn't.
Right. I think I'm
So,
with you. I think that, it's not a ridiculous line. It doesn't feel completely lopsided. I'm just thinking I don't feel like Indiana's trajectory is pointing up. They feel very flat. They feel very stagnant, and they might be able to amalgamate the same kind of performance if things
ooh,
don't work out. But like, let's be real. Do they have other gears? Do they have, this untapped potential that they've yet to unleash on the Miami Heat? I'm not feeling it. Watching them, they look like they are what they are. They're a well-coached team that's getting everything they got out of what they got right now. Whereas Miami, listen, yeah, they're knocking down a lot of shots. Don't get me wrong. Like, they're doing really well. Maybe they're overperforming, but I've seen the Heat put up buckets and they shoot the three so well. Some nights that 130 is not out of the realm for them. I mean, it's not likely, and these games have been slow. But if you up the pace a little bit, and Miami might be want to do that, and they knock down more threes than they deserve to knock down for a game, hey, it's there. I think 5.5 is a fair line. But if I were to play the probabilities game, I would say that Miami's going to cover that far more often than not. History says that the Pacers are going to cover it far more often than not. We'll see who's correct. That's the fun in all of this. I want to talk about the City Thunder and the
one last
Rockets now,
thing.
though. Oh,
One
no,
last
absolutely.
thing.
Hit me, hit me, hit me. Let me write this
Shout out
down. It's
to
going to be
Eric
good.
Spoelstra. Shout out to Eric
Great
Spoelstra.
coach. He's a great
I
coach.
don't think that there are a lot of coaches out there who would take their rookie point guard,
Mhm.
who is a rookie of the year finalist. Now, is he going to win? Obviously not. But
Bench him
he's a
though.
rookie of the year finalist. He's been starting for them all year, and he's just not playing in the playoffs because he
Yeah.
knows that Goran Dragic is a better gives them a better chance to win on a night to night basis. So
Yeah.
I think that that's a decision that like he can make. Maybe like maybe Popovich would have the stones and the credentials to actually pull that off.
Yeah.
But that is something that I was shocked to see game one. He didn't play in game two either. And
Mhm.
I think that decision does raise the ceiling of this team just a smidge. Not enough to be a true contender in the East, but
Right.
certainly it puts them above the Pacers and the 76ers.
It's not a very high bar, but yes, it's yeah, the Kendrick Nunn thing is interesting, and it shows that Eric Spoelstra, there's a methodology there, right? They're not winging it. They know what they're going for, and he doesn't fit what they're going for in the playoffs. And it's not like Eric Spoelstra doesn't have a couple of rings to point out that he knows what he's doing come playoff time. Now it helps to have LeBron and Dwayne Wade and Chris
Sure.
Bosh, but still, they were playing good teams during that stretch as well. Other teams had good players, not as good, but good. They lost a couple of NBA finals as well. Like, he knows what he's doing. Nunn's defense is unplayable in the postseason. I'm surprised that it's gone to this extent. I thought that maybe he'd get spot minutes here or there. Second unit guy, knock down a couple of threes, maybe get us a basket because the guy can create his own shot a little bit. I thought that might be his role, and you'd see him for 4 or 5 minutes a game when Miami needed a little jolt. That hasn't happened. Maybe today's the day, but yeah, Eric Spoelstra knows what he's doing. He knows how to maximize the performance of his team. So maybe that pace that I'm expecting in this game isn't coming, because if it was supposed to be here, it'd be here by now. Eric Spoelstra would have willed it into existence, but alas, here we are watching a rock fight. The Rockets and the Thunder, How do you feel about this series? There's a weird energy to this series, man. I don't know what the hell's really going on, if I'm being totally honest with you. Houston comes out and absolutely, kicks Oklahoma City's ass in the last game. It really wasn't. Chris Paul looked hollow. It's just not a good performance from him. I think Oklahoma City wants to turn this thing into a rock fight. Houston obviously didn't even bring rocks. It's I don't know. This feels so ideologically disparate that I can't get a good read on this series, and my gut just tells me ride Houston, but I don't know. The rug could get pulled out from these guys at any moment. At the same time, everything's so precarious around the Houston Rockets. I mean, they can miss 27 straight threes again. I don't know. The line is 2.5.
What's
The
the
Rockets,
opposite of a rock fight? Like a laser fight?
yeah, laser tag. They're playing laser
Yeah.
tag.
The
Like,
Thunder are showing up to a laser tag battle with a bag of rocks, and it's just not worked. Yeah,
in
I mean,
theory, you should win. In theory, if we showed up to the
fair
mall
point.
and we're playing a bunch of 13-year-olds in laser tag, and I had a rock, I feel like my chances would improve. But yeah. Plus, you could just block your little sensor area. It'd be great. It. I don't know. Maybe these analogies are completely bunk, but 2.5 points. Rockets favorited by tonight. Maybe the total's the real play here. 222.5 on blitzbet.eu. Again, I don't know what this series is. I feel, again, Houston's probably got it, but Matt LaMarca, shine some light on something that is very dark for me at the moment.
Yeah, I think I just have to take an L on this series. I mean, I loved Oklahoma City at
Yeah,
their price. I mean, when they opened up at plus 300,
I get it.
I didn't just drive to New Jersey. I ran there. I ran there. I mean, it probably wasn't the smartest decision because it took me longer to get there, but I ran to just show my enthusiasm. Um,
You lost all the blood went right to your leg. You lost all of it from your head. You weren't thinking straight afterwards.
yeah, I looked at the net rating of that Thunder Death lineup,
Mhm.
and the thought of that lineup being on the floor for 30 minutes of a night was just very tantalizing to me. But
Exactly.
I really do think that the Russell Westbrook thing has made a difference. I mean, the Rockets haven't needed a ton from James Harden in this series because their role players have been shooting the lights at.
Right.
But again, going back to that expected effective,
Yeah.
they're basically right on par with what they should be doing. Their
Mhm.
actual effective field goal percentage, 56.5%, expected 55.8.
And those
So
are really
it's
good
like,
numbers.
yeah, they're number one in expected.
Yeah.
So
Listen, Daryl Morey is no idiot, and they
yeah,
play the way Daryl Morey wants them to play.
exactly.
Like
You look at
now,
that shot
yeah,
profile and it's all at the rim and behind the arc. And
yep,
it's a good way to build an offense. We talk about how you might need a mid-range game from time to time in the playoffs, when those possessions get late and the defense
yeah.
ratchets up, but you still want to build your offense. You don't want to completely scrap what's been working for you during the
No, no,
regular
no. Yeah,
season.
that's
You
that's
want to
the
have that
salt.
additional arrow in the quiver.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, uh, when Jeff Green and Ben McLemore and these guys are knocking down, you know,
It's over.
8 combined 3-pointers a game, it's just gonna be very tough to beat them.
You have lost. If Jeff Green is giving you the business, you have lost the game. That is the definition. If Ben McLemore is looking like the guy that everyone thought the Sacramento Kings were going to get, or at least the
Oh,
Sacramento Kings
I
thought they were
loved
going to
him when
get,
they drafted him.
yeah, we all fell for that ruse. It's when he's looking like a solid NBA player, it's over. You've lost. This is how it works. Now, the
And
interesting, yeah,
for what it's worth, Eric Gordon looks as healthy, if not
he
healthier than
looks
he's
great.
looked for most of the season.
He looks really, really good. And listen, they're getting what they need out of Tucker and Covington. The offensive end hasn't been there, but you don't need that right now. You will need it
Correct.
as they move forward, right? If they get the Clippers, if they get the like, if they play good teams, we can argue about the Lakers, but they play the Clippers. Uh, they're going to need all hands on deck, and that's when we get into, hey, you're going to need that mid-range game a little bit more because now you're going to have a team that can take away the three-point line and can protect the rim at the same time. Most teams don't have that capability. Beyond that, you're also going to get into little sphincter tightening situations, and those threes might, rim out a little bit more than they used to. No pun intended. Sorry about that. It's
Took
it's
me a second.
yeah, didn't it all? Once we get a little bit deeper, we'll see how strong the Houston model is. When you're playing an Oklahoma City team that doesn't have a second kind of smoke, and their first kind of smoke isn't working as well as you thought it was, or it would, and I was with you. Yeah, I'm gonna bet on the Rockets methodology. They know what they're doing. And listen, there's something to be said for the fact that you need a guy who can get you a shot late in games. Now they haven't needed that really yet, but James Harden's not gonna just get you that shot even against 3 or 4 dudes. He's gonna get you that shot from beyond the arc. Like he's the only guy in the NBA outside of maybe Kevin Durant who'll just shoot over dudes who's gonna get you
Right.
that shot behind the arc. And so there's something to be said here. I think that Houston's future is looking really good. Any future play you had on Houston, which by the way, thank you for listening to me. I've only been yelling this from the top of the damn mountain, that there was value in 14-1. There was way more value in the numbers that were above that. Like any Houston future ticket that you might have looks real good right now. As for this series and the 2.5 points tonight, I don't know about 2.5. I guess I'd just take Houston on principle, but can you see Oklahoma City clicking and getting a win here and maybe
Sure.
picking up the
I could
117
definitely
on the
see
money
that.
line? Yeah.
I would take the points for sure, first of all.
Okay.
But again,
Why not?
we look at that 0-2 trend that we mentioned,
Mhm.
and when this line, in game 1, the Thunder were favored by 1.5. Now
Right.
you're getting 2.5. That's a 4-point swing.
What the hell? I get
Well,
it.
I
We've
mean,
seen
we
it,
we
but yeah.
know why.
Yeah. That's
So
fair. We know why. It should probably be bigger than that if we're being totally honest.
yeah, I mean the books, it takes them a while to react.
Right.
They don't want to be like, all right, well, yeah, we'll make the Thunder 7-point underdogs, and then they're gonna have like $19 million in liability from sharp money just pounding them. So
Right. No, that's a
it's
good point.
it's a gradual process. If the Thunder get embarrassed again today, well, the spread will go up again. So
Well,
I'm going to take.
it better because here's the one thing I'll tell you about these NBA bubbles. It used to be 1-2-3 Cancun. Now it's 1-2-3. Get me the hell out of the bubble and let me go home. If you're down 3-0, I mean, it is just they are going to be paving roads with their bodies as they lay down. Just smooth asphalt, beautiful, just the smoothest ride that you could have known to man. Teams are not going to be fighting down, hell 2-1, much less 3-0, 3-1. Get the hell out of here. And that's literally going to be their mindset going into the game. How the hell do we get the hell out of here? I know it's been nice, but God, just let me back into the real world ASAP. So this is it right here. If Oklahoma City doesn't win it, it's over and cashed, and more so than just the historical realm of nobody has ever come back from 3-0 in an NBA playoff series. It's going to be it's going to be a sweep if Houston wins this evening.
I think that's a fair take, a very fair take. I mean, you don't see Chris Paul as being the throw in the towel guy, but
Oh, he'll throw that shit in so fast. I mean, like, be real. Like, you're in it's one thing when you're already like, oh, we got to get on a plane anyway. We might as well play another game. I mean, I've heard that so many times covering the NBA. Like, hey, listen, we're in City A. We got to go home anyway. Like, might as well play another game when we get home. We'll be sleeping in our own beds. Now it's like I
true.
get to leave the Coronado Springs. Let me go. Leave. Let me go. We're not winning this series, so why the hell do I need to hang out? And Adam Silver, meanwhile, is just like, please go. You're very expensive. Referees, make sure that this
Great
goes
points.
smoothly. All right, let's. Do we have a consensus here on what we're doing in this game, or are we overall just kind of wondering what the hell's going on? Still, let me
For
run it
me,
by you. Yeah,
it's Thunder or pass. Thunder or
Thunder pass.
pass. And
And you're
I don't
taking
know
the
if I can
points.
talk myself into the Thunder. Yeah, I always take the points. I'm not a huge money line guy. I want
Okay.
that extra safety net. I think it's
Coward.
interesting when you're yeah, when you're looking at spreads this small. Is it
Right.
historically more profitable to take the points or to get the extra payout?
Do
It
you have an
wouldn't
answer?
shock me if getting the payout is the better option, and maybe I'll look into this one day, but I want the
Let
points.
let me know because I've been a money line better for a very long time, and I'd like to know how stupid I am or smart. I just like that verification, if you wouldn't mind. All right, the Lakers and the Portland Trail Blazers, and I guess talking about what we were just mentioning there with the lines creeping up just inch by inch, 7.5 points. The Lakers are giving the Blazers, yeah, they're giving the Blazers tonight. We don't know what Dame Lillard's situation is going to be. We know he's going to play because he's Dame Lillard. It's the dislocated index finger, if I remember correctly, on the non-shooting hand. So he's going to have some cool, like Allen Iverson tape going on, most likely. Um, it will be a great excuse for when the Blazers lose. And if they make this game interesting, it will be this great narrative towards Dame Lillard. Either way, we're going to be talking about Dame at the end of this one, which is really all he ever wanted. I don't know. The total feels probably pretty fair at 223.5 on blitzbet.eu. I think there might be some value, and I know you're not a money line guy, Matt LaMarca. I think there might be some value in the plus 275 that you can get on Portland overall. That seems commensurate with the 7.5 points that the Lakers are giving up. I I don't know. I'm not impressed with the Lakers whatsoever, and I think that Portland is gassed. I think that they looked absolutely defeated in game two, and that I can't imagine that they are able to rev up the engine once again. I'm probably in on the Lakers here. I'm probably in on an over. Actually, I'm staying away from the total. I'm probably in on the Lakers here. And if I wasn't in on the Lakers in the 7.5, I would just take Portland on the money line because that would mean that they showed up energized and ready to go. And then things could get interesting. But I just don't think that that's that team this evening. Where do you stand? I imagine you're with me.
Yeah. I mean, my only thing is I might be on the under as opposed to the over, but
Yeah, I get
the
that.
the Portland Trailblazers, we've been saying that they're a fraud, that they're doing it with smoke and mirrors, and it's kind of come to fruition.
Absolutely.
Their offense is just it's not great, which sounds crazy when you're
It
thinking
isn't.
when you consider that they have a guy that's making 35 footers on a nightly
Yeah.
basis.
Why is he
But
having to shoot them, Matt LaMarca? Why is he having to shoot 35 footers and you're considering it a good shot? Hit me with the double E.
Double E does not like Portland. I mean, they're 14th in regular effective,
Yep.
13th in expected.
Yeah.
So they're basically right at what they should be. More shots from the mid range than you'd like to see.
Hmm.
Less shots from behind the arc and at the rim than are
Hmm.
ideal. So the big question is whether or not the Lakers offense is ever going to bother to show up in Orlando. They were the worst team in offensive efficiency during the seeding games,
Hmm.
and they have just been absolutely awful again in the playoffs. I saw something before game two, and I tweeted it out.
Yeah.
But according to Second Synergy or
Hmm.
one of those data companies,
Second spectrum yeah, second
Second
spectrum.
Spectrum. Thank you, producer Jordan. The Pacers left roughly 47 points on the board in game one in terms of like expected points versus actual points. It was the most that they had ever tracked. The most that they had ever tracked. And again, if you look at the effective and the expected effective, 16th in actual, third in expected. So this offense,
Yeah.
it's getting good looks. We're expecting them to be better. They were much better during the regular season. They were a top 5 offensive team in terms of offensive efficiency, but if they need we're still just waiting for that third guy.
Totally.
LeBron and Anthony Davis can only do so much in the
Right.
playoffs. It's a great duo to have, but they need that third guy, and I just don't see anyone. I mean, I want it to be Dion Waiters. That's where we're at.
Matt,
I
what was I
want Dion
telling you?
Waiters to play.
What was I telling you coming into these playoffs? When Kyle Kuzma is your third best team, you're not a title, your third best player, you're not a title contender. I don't care how good your first two guys are. And by the way, something's up with LeBron. I don't want to get full first take here, but like
Oh boy.
my man ain't right. There's something off. He's just not right. Like Anthony Davis turned it on. This might be the game where LeBron just decides he's got to turn it on because you're right. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, no one's questioning their overall greatness. I mean, they're unbelievable. And 99% of the games they're going to play, they're the two best players on the court, and that includes this game with Dame Lillard on the floor. But they for their long-term prospects, they need that third guy. If Kyle Kuzma's that third guy, then they don't have great long-term prospects. In this series, they can get away with just 1 and 2 on Davis and LeBron. And frankly, they can just get away with 1. And we saw that in game 2 with Anthony Davis just taking over. Maybe this is the LeBron game. They take control of the series. They more or less, make it clear to Portland, this is done. You're all over. Maybe they knock down some threes. I just don't think they're a very good three-point shooting team. I think that they know how to get the open looks. I don't think they know how to knock down open looks. I think that's a big problem for them. I'm fading the Lakers hard overall, but I'm fading the Blazers more because they're just not good. And they don't have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And I just think that one of those two guys is going to have a really nice game. And that's all it takes to beat the Portland Trailblazers, who can't play a lick of defense and really aren't that good on offense unless Dame goes supernova and scores 60, which I don't think he has enough. I don't think he has enough gas in the tank right now just to do that again. He's incredible, but come on, like how far does this guy have to carry you before he gives out and his fingers busted up? It's bad news. So 7.5. I'm in. We're both in on the Lakers. And did you have a take on the 220? What was it? 223.5 total?
I mean, my thing is just that if you really believe that the Lakers just can't shoot,
Yeah,
then this should be another relatively low scoring game.
yeah,
Because Portland is going to struggle to score the ball against the Lakers, who, even despite their offensive struggles, have been elite defensively. So
yeah.
if you don't think that the Lakers can get you 120 plus points in this contest, you should probably look at the under.
It's good advice. Let's look at Sunday's games here because yesterday's NBA action was, let's just call it interesting. That's the nice way to
It's a
put
good
it.
word for it.
And let's start with the most interesting team in all of the land, the Philadelphia 76ers, who stink. They're terrible. And I am fascinated to see what they do this offseason, which is about to begin on Sunday afternoon as they're down 3-0. Kemba Walker just doing what Kemba Walker does in clutch games, just making buckets, making plays. Looked awesome.
Happy for Kemba.
Very happy for Kemba. Everyone likes Kemba. You can hate the Celtics all you want. Everybody likes Kemba on this planet. Great guy, great player. But man, Boston 8.5-point favorites. Philadelphia, they're getting out the asphalt. They're going to be paving a road. I'm all in on Boston here. I think Jason Tatum bounces back from a pretty meh game on Friday. I think the Celtics, maybe they patsy around a little bit and don't exactly get their act together from the get-go, but they're such a better team. In Philadelphia, yes, I'm with you. I was with you on the bet to I was with you on Philadelphia yet, but they're not good. And now they don't have
They are not.
incentive. And now they don't have incentive. And Joel Embiid, you're going to give him the ball on the block 40 times? Like, they gave him the ball enough. They don't have anyone around him. Joel Embiid needs help. It shows how important Ben Simmons was, because if Ben, they were just on other levels. I mean, you can't just be counting on Shake Milton. You can't be counting Tobias Harris. What the hell is
Way
he
too
doing?
much Alec Burks for my liking.
I love Alec Burks. Alec Burks
Really?
has only been on. Listen, no, but I like Alec Burks as the 8th guy on your team.
Okay.
I like Alec Burks in a Jordan Clarkson role, as Jordan Clarkson does for Utah, where it's like, oh man, we got to give him 30 points a game. Like, oh, he'll be able to at least stand in and be a replacement level player. Alec Burks being your main shot getter, not bueno. Very, very not bueno. I think Philadelphia rolls over in this one. I think Boston's a much better team. My play on this is under 213.5. That is my play on this, because I think both teams are going to just lollygag around. Now, of course, you can make the argument, well, if they're just going to be messing around, maybe they just knock in a bunch of shots because no one's going to be playing any defense, and 213 is going to look like nothing. But I don't think Philadelphia can knock down shots straight up, full stop. So It's really just, how hard does Boston want to play as it pertains to that total? I don't think they're going to go that hard. I think they're going to win. How do you feel about the 8.5, Matt LaMarca?
Yeah, it's first the total I want to talk about because you're
Hit me.
right. That last game, I don't think people would believe you if you told them that game 3 of this series was actually the game that was played at the fastest pace.
Right.
It was just the game where neither team could do anything offensively, and
Everyone
Jason
was pushing.
Tatum was in
Everyone was,
foul trouble.
everyone was pushing it off of rebounds the entire
Right.
game.
So the fact that they played their fastest game and combined for 196 points, I agree that that does not bode well for an over in this contest.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the actual game itself, I have a trend. I'm gonna have to rename it the 1-2-3 Cancun trend
Right.
because closeout games, teams that are up 3-love in a series
Mhm.
since 2006, 34, 25, and 4 against the spread. So that's not even straight up, that's against the spread. Most of these teams with a 3-0 lead are going to be favorites. So not only are they just winning the game, they're covering. So
Oh,
that's
there.
a 12% ROI. Not a huge sample size in the playoffs, but
Fair.
again, Philly seems pretty cooked.
Oh my God.
They fought for Brett Brown yesterday. Boston guy, Brett Brown. We're out there just doing our best. That's my Boston accent. I hope I didn't offend
It wa
anybody.
it wasn't a bad Boston accent. Let me tell you this though. Brent Brown is a man of no accents. I was listening actually to this game on the radio yesterday, and they had Brent Brown, and I thought that it was some guy from Philadelphia because Brent Brown just picks up the accent of the people around him. When he was coaching in Australia, he picked up an Australian accent. He's like an accent chameleon. It's wild. Um, and yeah, okay, they fought for him. I don't think that anyone's going to fight for him because that's a dead man walking. He will not have that
Yeah,
job.
no
He
doubt.
probably shouldn't have it going into game 4. But like here we are. They'll drag it out, and it might be until October. I'm very much of the mindset that they're going to blow up a couple of things on the Sixers team. I think
They should.
they should. Now we'll see if Elton Brand puts should and will together, but it's
Easier said than done.
that's for sure. When you're paying Tobias Harris that much money, when you're paying Al Horford that much money, I mean, just here's two holes on a roster. Like, what are you supposed to do? Imagine having 4 players paid as much as they're paying Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Al Horford, and Tobias Harris, and only having one of those guys for the postseason.
No, you're
Because
just drawing dead.
you're
You're
just
paying 4 guys all that money,
you're
and
playing
you have
3
no
against
chance of
5
winning a
every
title.
game. Yeah, not a chance, not a chance. And I you know what? I want to back you up on this. You were right about the matchups. You can see where Philadelphia should be taking advantage. And I can even see where Brent Brown is noticing it, and they're calling the right plays. Embiid doesn't have it. He doesn't have the juice. He looks distraught. He looks out of whack. He's even making plays. He doesn't have anybody around him. That team is a hot mess. Actually, they're not even a hot mess. They are cold, refrigerated messes. Like, they're not even the good kind of mess. They're not even an interesting mess. They're a sad, depressing, microwave dinner didn't fully defrost mess. Just sitting there on the couch crying to yourself sort of a mess. Twice divorced in the motel sort of a mess. The whole thing
Oh
needs to
man,
get
that is a
blown.
mess.
I'm telling you. The whole thing needs to just get blown to sayonara. They're not even on the same level as the Boston Celtics, but 3-0 games are just going to be funky. So I'm with you on that trend that the first opportunity for the Sixers to give up, they will gladly take. I don't know how early that will be, in which case then you get, Boston being able to cover with ease. So I think that the play here, as you alluded to with that, I mean, just explaining that number gave me PTSD. The play here is the under, without question, right?
I agree.
Okay. Let's talk about the team that everyone wants to talk about, and that's the Toronto Raptors, who absolutely smacked down the Brooklyn Nets in their last game and are now 13.5-point favorites going into their Sunday. It looks like that's a nice afternoon game. Sunday afternoon evening contest. 13.5-point favorites. Toronto over Brooklyn. The total on this one, 217.5. I'm kind of feeling an over on the total. I don't know how you feel. I obviously, let's actually, we'll get to the total. Let's start with 13.5. After game two, you would venture to say that that's a very fair line. How do you
Yeah.
fall on either side of it?
You ask me how I feel, and I tell you I feel bad for Brooklyn is what I feel.
I
You
get it.
know,
Yeah. They just don't have it. They just don't have it,
they
and I
were
don't expect why we. Yeah,
already
it's bad.
shorthanded, right? No Spencer Dinwiddie, no Kyrie Irving, no DeAndre Jordan for whatever that was worth.
Yeah, probably
Now
not
they
much.
lose Joe Harris, who is maybe their most important player
He was their best player.
outside of Kyrie and Kevin Durant when they're actually healthy. So
Okay.
he spaces the floor. He's basically the Nets version of Duncan Robinson. Not as big, maybe not
Yeah.
as capable defensively, but
He knocks down threes, man. And
he might
listen,
be the best pure shooter in the league, as he's shown in the 3-point contest the past couple of years. So without him, the Nets are just drawing dead. They're drawing dead. That's why I backed Toronto in game 3 of this series, and I just don't see what is the incentive for Brooklyn at this point. You mentioned it for Toronto or for Philly. Like Brooklyn is playing a whole bunch of guys who have zero future with this team.
yeah,
It's Karis LeVert and nobody.
right. I'm with you. Now that might be the reason as to why they play hard. Like they didn't have a reason to play hard in their game against the Portland Trailblazers, but they liked the opportunity. Maybe there is some pride there for these guys who are never going to play these kind of minutes again in their entire lives. Like it's just like you better leave it all out there because this is your
Yeah,
last
that's a
game,
fair
buddy.
point.
I don't know how you factor that into a betting market. Guys who are playing because this is their only opportunity. Cup of Joe's without Joe Harris. It's bad. I'm staying away from this game in general just because, I mean, naturally you're like Toronto should just absolutely smoke them. But also Toronto doesn't have any fear in them, right? Like now they're champions and they're smart. They know take care of business. I don't think it should be difficult for them to take care of business. Maybe the play is just the under because they're just gonna mess around for 48 minutes. And the question is, did they win by 14 or did they win by 12? I mean, I think it's a pretty good line. It's I don't know. I think I'd stay away from pretty much everything. And maybe there's an under. Maybe there's just an over. Maybe it just goes over because again, everyone's just chucking. I just stay away. Just stay away from Toronto and Brooklyn. We'll deal with
Uh,
Toronto. We'll deal with
So
Toronto in the next
to
round.
recap, Dieter says we may get a blowout or we may
Yeah.
get a fight from the Nets, and
Yeah.
we may get an over or we may get an under.
This is
Just
the
for those of you out there
I just
paying
I just
attention at
I just
home.
I just want to be clear. This is the kind of pointed analysis that you can get nowhere else. I mean, just straight to the point. Here's what you need to know. I'm just what I'm doing is I'm talking myself into staying as far away from this game as possible by going through all of the possibilities and verbalizing them like a moron. That's what's
I
going
think
on
that's
here.
fair. I
Yeah.
think that's a very fair take. I also don't have a ton of interest in this game.
Run away. I'm very sorry to all of our fine folks in Canada who are interested in an angle. What I would say is save your money and use it on Blitzbet in the next round and the round after that because the Raptors have looked pretty darn good in this series.
Here's the angle. You
Hit me.
take whatever money you are going to bet in game 4
Mhm.
and you bet it on the Boston Celtics to beat the Toronto Raptors in the next series. I'm sorry if you're a Canadian, if you're rooting for the Raptors, maybe that's something you're not interested in, but
Yeah.
the Celtics continue to be the most disrespected team in the league. They're out here
Yeah.
just hammering Philadelphia, and all everybody wants to talk about is what's wrong with Philadelphia.
That's fair. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I still need to see a little bit more from Boston, but for a semifinal series, okay. No,
I've seen enough. Jason Tatum, top 10 player in the league.
hard to argue.
Maybe even higher than that. The way he impacts the court on both ends. I mean, after game 1, I was like, okay, the 76ers need to play Matisse Thybulle more. Matisse Thybulle is the Jason Tatum stopper. And Jason Tatum laughed at me He said, "Okay, put him in the starting lineup. I'll torch him too." The only
It's
thing that has been able to stop him is a questionable whistle from Scott Foster.
as all whistles from Scott Foster are. It is. I'll give Boston this. The formula is there, right? They have a point guard who ups his games, ups his game in big moments. I mean, they have a winner in Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker is nothing if not a winner. Now, you might look at his time in Charlotte and say, what? And I'll say, did you see the other people that he was
Right.
playing? Like Kemba
I'll show
Walker,
you a Nick Batum $30 million a year contract.
right? Like Kemba Walker's a dude, and he won way more games for that Charlotte team than they had any business in winning. He put them in the postseason multiple times. They have Marcus Smart is misunderstood. That dude just wins basketball games, and if he gives you anything as a shooter, it's lights out for the other team. He's got some real Draymond vibes on him, and I'm up in Seattle now, but I live in the Bay Area, and I revere Draymond. I think Draymond Green has magical powers in terms of winning. Now, he
In
didn't
terms
help.
of annoying Kevin Durant.
Yeah, well, yeah. Maybe on the macro level, it's a bit more complicated, but and then you have Jaylen Brown, who's really come into his own, and you have what you need in the NBA playoffs, which is a wing who can get you a big bucket on his own come crunch time. Yes, Kemba can get you a bucket. Kemba is a bucket. Yes, you have Marcus Smart, who's going to be able to get you a stop. Jaylen Brown, he's a young, up and coming, but a really solid defensive player. He's going to provide you great team defense just by being on the floor and being smart and understanding what's going on out there. Tatum's upped his defensive game dramatically. It's really impressive what he's done. But man, what he is able to do in terms of just creating his own shot these days, it might not be fully baked yet. And that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to go all in on a big Boston future in the Eastern Conference, because even though I'm kind of down on the Bucks, and Boston seems like the logical pick. Then, if you're down on the Bucks, I don't know.
I just think the way that the betting
numbers
numbers are
I'm with you.
laying out,
I'm with you.
it makes the most sense. I mean, the Raptors are plus 650 to win the title on the DraftKings Sportsbook. That's what I have in front of me here. Because unfortunately, I'm not a Canadian. Most of the time, I do wish I was.
It's a much easier drive. Well, it's really easy for me now. I can get across the border in like 90 minutes and hit up blitzbet.eu. Don't need this VPN, but I didn't bring my passport, so joke's on me.
Anyway, Raptors plus 650 to win the title. Celtics plus 1100. That is what you could drive a truck through that gap, and there's not a lot of difference between those teams.
It's a big enough gap for Todd Gurley to run through.
Nice.
All right, let's talk about just some god awful basketball from the Denver Nuggets. I don't know. I was kind of in on the Nuggets. I felt good about them after game one. I felt like some of the issues that we both highlighted and you put in much better, more succinct terms than I did. I don't know if they were cleared up, but they were alleviated to a certain extent after game one. And Jamal Murray's playing better defense and he's knocking down shots. And Utah wasn't able to take advantage of the Joker. And yes, Donovan Mitchell went off, but Donovan Mitchell had to go off for 57 points and they didn't even win. Like, it just felt like Denver was the better team. They were a really good regular season team. And now the bed is just twice soiled over. They're laughable defensively. I can't. It's laughable watching Utah just dribble it twice and suddenly the entire floor is wide open. I don't know what Denver's doing on defense. Joker was always going to be a liability. I understand that Jamal Murray's a liability on defense. They shouldn't be this much of a liability, and the team defense should be a lot better. Where's the third man tagging in on this? Why are we not icing Mike Malone? Just ice the bejesus out of all of this. Like, what the hell is going on with the Denver Nuggets? And by the way,
I'll tell you where the third man is.
Where is
he's on the bench in street clothes, and his name is Will Barton, and the fourth guy's right next to him, and his name is Gary Harris.
No, it's
there's a reason that those guys were
Yeah,
starters for most of the year.
no,
And
it's
it's
true.
not because they're elite offensive players, it's because they make the defense passable.
It's valid.
Um,
It's valid.
I
I'll give you
I
that.
don't
That's a great point.
know I don't know when if we're gonna get them at all. I mean, it seems like they've been doubtful
At
basically since
at
the
this
first
point,
game.
if it's now or never.
Yeah, I wanna buy back in on Denver, but I need those guys. It's just too much defensively to ask without them.
They're making
D
Utah's offense look good, Matt LaMarca.
Yes. No,
Utah.
I know, and I blame myself. I put the blinders on here for Utah, and if you remember when we started these, I
Yeah.
was pretty low on the Nuggets, but
You were. You were low on both teams.
I just let my hatred for Jordan Clarkson blind me into backing them
Yeah.
when in reality,
Heaven
I
forbid we
was
let
looking
logic
past
get
Denver's
involved.
flaws.
D
Yeah,
I didn't I
so
didn't I didn't think that Denver was this flawed. I mean, they in the last 2 games, it looked like they've regressed 3 years. I mean,
yeah,
I could not have foreseen that, especially after game 1 where it looked like, hey, all the things that we were saying, all the reasons that Denver could win this series, right? All the reasons that they should win this series. We were both in on Denver. All the reasons that they should showed up in game 1. And you go, okay, listen, they might not be on for 2 games, 3 games in this series. It might go 7. It might go 6. But I think Denver's the better team here. And we saw that in game 1. And now, I mean, I think that they just forgot how to play defense. Will Barton is a very good wing. He's not that good. Gary Gary Harris, like, what are we building up Gary Harris to be something here? Like, yes, those 2
you
guys
laugh.
you're right, they're very important for the defense. They shouldn't be this important to a defense because I'm watching that game yesterday and it was great. My girlfriend's like, "Oh, this is really entertaining basketball. The Utah looks really good offensively." And it's just like I can see how you can see that. But geez Louise, every time they needed 2 dribbles, and they were either at the hoop with Rudy Gobert dunking the ball, or they had created enough collapsing into the lane that every 3-point shooter on the floor was open at the same time. I've never seen anything like this. It was incredibly terrible coaching. It was next level bad defense, and Utah wasn't even doing anything interesting offensively to exploit it. I just don't know how I can overlook that anymore. I mean, they don't look like a playoff team.
So, Will Barton on the court this year. The
Yeah,
Nuggets have increased their net rating by 9 points per 100 possessions. And
you really should
virtually
have.
all of that is coming on the defensive end. They
Yep.
allow 7.2 fewer points per 100 percentage. Effective field goal percentage for their opponents drops by roughly 3.5%. Those rank over 90th percentile for his impact.
Yeah.
Gary Harris, it's not as stark, but still pretty stark. They improved by 5.6 points per 100 possessions defensively. Opponents' effective field goal percentage drops by 2%. So, missing those 2 guys, it's just not good. I
And then
mean,
playing Michael Porter Jr. on top of it.
yeah, and again, I don't want to just crap all over Porter because he's a young kid. He's
Yeah, you don't
still,
expect
this is
anything
really
different.
his first NBA action. Came in Orlando and came in the bubble.
Yeah.
Now in the playoffs. So I think he still has some upside, in that
Oh, yeah,
department,
yeah.
but he is just not a quality defender at the moment. So
It's also a
uh,
black hole on offense, man. I mean, that ball gets into his hands and it never goes anywhere else. It's kind of tough. I mean, listen, I'm a Missouri Tiger, and so technically I should probably own him, but yeah, I'm out. I'm out on Michael Porter Jr. Man, he could knock down. And listen, that would have been nice if he was part of the second unit. But when you're playing him big minutes, and every time you go down the floor, you're just giving up basket after basket after basket. It's not his fault, but he ain't helping the problem either, and he's not outscoring what he's giving up. So it's we say all of this and watch Denver absolutely turn the Jets on for game 4.
well, yeah, I was just gonna say because Utah is clearly is due for some regression
They
offensively.
have to. I mean,
I mean,
listen though, are
their
they?
effective field goal percentage is 62.9% right now,
They're shooting
which is
against
just
air.
ungodly good.
It's James Harden good.
Expected is 54.5. So that's like a plus 8.5% difference right there.
Yeah.
Eventually, they are going to come back to reality. Now, the problem is that Denver has also exceeded their expected effective field goal percentage. We
No.
saw that, well, prior to their last game, they were second in effective field goal
Yeah.
prior to their last game. Now they're down to eighth. So they had a
Yeah.
big drop. But in terms of effective or expected, they're still 15th. So they still have a ways to come down. This is it's not pretty right now for the Nuggets.
Matt LaMarca, I have one play for you here.
Okay.
I am pounding the over though on this game because I think that Denver needs to come out blazing. I think that they need an offensive game. I think they need the Joker. There was a stretch there at the end of the second quarter of game 3 where it seemed like, hey, they're figuring some stuff out. They're kind of playing through Paul Millsap. It seemed okay. I think that they're going to be able to put up some points. And I know Utah's defense has been pretty damn good the last 2 games. I don't think they'll be able to hold it. I think I'm going to give some deference to the Nuggets coaching staff that they will be able to figure out a few more points. I don't think Utah is going to stop scoring. I think that this turns into a full-on AAU game, and you're giving me a total of 215. I'm going to take the over. What do you think?
Yeah, I
know you
might
just
talk
talked about
myself into
regression.
the Nuggets. I might talk
Yeah.
myself into the Nuggets here. The the fact that they're coming off of such a big loss, it's
Yeah.
almost always smart to buy teams in that situation.
And it'd
The
be a
spread
2-2
becomes
series, by the way.
inflated
Yeah.
in that, like Denver opened up as 1.5 point favorites in game 3. I think they closed as slight underdogs.
Mhm.
Now they're 3-point underdogs. So it's like just
Yeah.
again, nearly 4 points difference.
Yeah.
And teams coming off of a loss in the playoffs of at least 25 points are 50, 29, and 0. Sorry, 0 against the spread. So that's an ROI of 23.5%.
Take it.
It's just one of those things where public indication is to say, okay, Denver sucks.
Yeah.
And the line over adjusts. And you should almost always be buying back in those situations. Now, maybe you want to talk yourself into the fact that Denver just is that bad that they're not worth considering here, but I don't think Utah is that good. Regardless, whoever loses this or whoever wins this series is going
they
to
are
lose
so
in the next
done.
round.
They're so done. Both of these teams are cooked. Yeah, you know what? You can talk me into Denver at plus 123 on BlitzBet. Money line. You can talk me into it. I'm seeing the Clippers. They're not on BlitzBet right now because we're still waiting on the Luka Doncic injury news. But this line is
Didn't
up.
look good.
Did not look good. And even if he's playing, I have a hard time imagining him being full on Luka. But we're seeing 9 points in favor of the Clippers on a couple of books here, including FanDuel New Jersey. That tells me that they don't think Luka's playing or that Luka's going to
That's
be
a lot.
extremely limited.
It's a lot of points. When you
Couldn't be
consider
as
it was
limited
5 in game 1.
Yeah, couldn't be as limited as Paul George is in the playoffs though. Playoff P really really in his feelings right now. He's having
Poor
quite
George. His team's winning games and he's still just getting dumped on.
well.
I'm with Doc Rivers. I'm not worried about Paul George.
I wouldn't be either because I don't think Dallas is going to give it to him. And that's not where you need him. If he's putting stuff in reserves for later, it's probably a good play for the Clippers. Kawhi shows up in last night's game, played awesome. The defense seemed a lot better. Dallas was in it for a little bit, but it was very much Clippers came out, flipped the switch, looked like what the Clippers should look like. They're still missing Pat Bev, don't get me wrong, but because Reggie Jackson's defensive IQ, not bueno. But man, it is spectacular to watch them when they're on, and they're starting to decide we're going to play some basketball every now and again, and it's really something to watch. I don't know if I'd go anywhere near the 9 points on this one. We got a total of 231.5 in some places, 231 in other places. I think I'd take the under on that one if Luka's not playing, because don't think Kristaps is dropping 40. What do you think about this game, Mark? And maybe let's just extrapolate it out, because if Luka's out, this series is over more or less. How do you feel about the Clippers overall.
I mean, the math suggests that this series is over regardless. When teams take a 2-1 lead,
Yeah.
it's just really tough to come back from that deficit. I want to say that teams win the series at roughly an 80% clip when they get up 2-1. So, in all likelihood, the Mavericks are done. And I want to give Doc Rivers some praise here. This has been my coaching podcast. I'm talking a lot of coaching today.
Well, coaching matters in the playoffs, man. We talk about players. We should be talking about coaches too. Tactics and coaching and how you get teams ready to go matters, which is why I'm so angry at the Denver Nuggets right now because I think Mike Malone's a good coach.
Landry Shamet has been he was murdered when he was on the court in the first two games.
Mm-hmm.
The Clippers were negative 31 over those minutes.
Yep.
And and so Doc decided, what am I going to do? I'm going to put him in the starting lineup, surround him with my best players because they need to play him right now with Pat Bev out. They have to play him. They're just not deep enough where they can completely bury him on the bench. So put him around my best players, and then I can move Reggie Jackson back to the bench. He can operate more as a primary creator for that second unit. Mm-hmm. It was just a really smart decision, and I think it paid off big time in Game 3. The only reason that the Mavericks won Game 2, and I shouldn't say the only reason, but one of the big reasons was that their bench unit was just so much better than the Clippers bench unit.
100%.
Seth Curry was plus 30 in Game 2. Mm-hmm. Boban was plus 12 in like 9 minutes.
Yeah, that was a one-off. We all knew that was a one-off, but still, it was wildly impressive.
So we know that the Clippers, with their starting unit on the floor, probably has the best lineup in basketball, at least in my opinion.
No,
there's no lineup that's better than their starting five. So it's if they can just limit the damage with those bench units, which is crazy to say when you consider that they have 2 finalists for the sixth man of the year. But regardless,
man of the year, but we'll get into that some other time.
If they can limit the damage in those bench situations, they're just not going to lose very often. So 9 is scary. If Luka plays, 9 is probably too much. But if you don't take the 9 now and Luka gets confirmed out, this line might even go a little bit higher. So
yeah, I'm with you. Overall, with the Clippers, have they? Well, actually, I don't know if we've ever gotten a consensus from you here. Were they your title favorite?
Oh, 100%.
Okay,
yes.
So you're feeling.
I've been standing the Clippers for the whole playoffs. Unfortunately, the time to buy them has kind of passed.
Oh, yeah,
they are now the odds-on favorite. When they entered the bubble, they were third, clearly behind the Lakers and the Bucks, and I gobbled them up at that price. Now they're the odds-on favorites. I still think you can grab them. They're plus 260 at most locations. I think that's still fair.
Yeah.
But it's not as fair, like once we get down to the 2-1 range, I think that's when this stops becoming a bet for me.
And then you start betting on Dieter's Houston Rockets, a sentence that I never thought I'd say out loud. Telling you.
I will never bet the Rockets to win the title.
And guess who's going to be laughing from his beautiful island vacation when they finally win it all? Matt LaMarca, tell the folks what's coming from you and where they can find it on linemovement.com.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing my betting breakdowns. We went 3-1 yesterday. My only loss was Philly.
Unbelievable.
That again, I still think I should have won that game.
It was the right play. It was the right play.
We'll have more of those up. I believe Monday is going to be my next piece for the slate breakdown.
Yep.
You can keep finding me here, hanging out with my man. I'm going to start calling you Data Kurtenbach with all the data that you bring to the show.
Have I brought any data to the game whatsoever?
You're the man. You're Data Kurtenbach.
Okay.
And then on Twitter at Matt LaMarca, you can always see what I'm doing there.
I think that was a Boston accent as opposed to a compliment. All right. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Dieter, Dieter, and we'll be doing this once we get this weekend slate of games out of the way, and we get some of these teams that are down 3-0 out of the way. We'll see who gets paved over in the next couple of days, and we'll get back to you with all this sweet betting action. And if you guys haven't hit up blitzbet.eu, if you're in Canada, do it now, because we got some great promos going on. Do it. Blitzbet.eu. Do it. blitzbet.eu. That's the spot you need to be going. We're powered by blitzbet.eu. So we're obviously partial to it, but you should be partial to it as well. Hit it up and let us know what your winners were